Hello and welcome everybody. Happy Friday. Hope you are having a fantastic start to your weekend. My name is Jack Knoll. Very excited to be your host for this Fireball XL5 live extravaganza. Got a lot of fun and games planned for this evening. Of course, we're going to be talking about the very recently announced Fireball XL5 Technical Operations Manual, but we're also going to be celebrating all things Fireball, chatting about our favorite moments, characters, ships, and more from this classic Super Mario Nation series. Now, of course, I can't possibly do this show alone. I am joined this evening by two men who really know their Martian delight from their oxygen pills. It's the authors of the World Space Patrol Technical Operations Manual. Please welcome to the stream Chris Thompson and Andrew Clements. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, I timed that perfectly with the music. I feel really smug about that. How are we this evening?
I'm good. How are you doing, Jack?
Doing very well, doing very well. It's lovely to see so many people in the chat getting involved already. We love to see everyone's comments. Hello, Scott. Hello, Jeffrey. Hello, Peach. Hello, Richard. Oh my goodness. So many comments coming in. That's fantastic to see. We're looking forward to hearing from everyone throughout the stream. If you have any questions about the manual or anything Fireball XL5 related, please do share them and we will try to get to them throughout the show. It would also be great if everyone could share this stream on your social media platform of choice so that we can get as many people watching as possible, because, I mean, what better way is there to spend a Friday night? Met with absolute silence. There is no better way to spend a Friday night.
I thought it was a rhetorical question.
It's like, well, obviously. Now, of course, one other excellent thing I should say is that joining us later in the stream, we have a special guest who is also a big XL5 fan. It's none other than the magnificent artist Lee Sullivan. He is going to be joining us for some fun and games all about XL5, and I imagine talking about XL5 art and comic strips in particular. So stay tuned for that. A lot of people already want to be getting on with talking about the XL5 manual, and I promise we will get to that.
I think it's actually really cool. Actually, it's just really cool that in the year of our Lord 2024, there's so much hype for a 61-year-old TV show.
Yeah, exactly. Isn't it incredible that we've had all these just look at all these people who are looking forward to XL5, new XL5 merch. I mean, yeah, all these years later is a wonderful way to celebrate the show. So, I mean, I do want to just, put the brakes on a little bit before we get into the manual and before I knock over everything that I've put here. I want to talk about earliest XL5 memories because, of course, us chaps, we haven't been around for 61 years or however long it's been. So I'm curious to know, what is your earliest memory of Fireball XL5? When did you first come across it? Chris?
I remember it. So I used to grow up with Thunderbirds the comic. Very good publication, better than TV 21. And yeah. And obviously it would have other strips in it. It would have Zero X, which I really, really loved, and it also would have Fireball XL5. And obviously it was Mike Noble's Fireball XL5, and there was like all the good old strips, like the giant animals, the Ant War. It had the snowmen, the black ships, like the Sword of Damocles. And I remember it being really, really cool. And it wasn't until it came out on DVD I finally got to see the show. But so for me, the comics are really what Fireball XL5 is all about for me.
Excellent. Yeah, it's amazing actually that the comics are the first exposure that you had to it. And when you actually came to watch the show, how did it compare?
It wasn't bad. Like there was an element of the comics are very sort of like hard sci-fi with a touch of like fantasy and adventure, and the show itself is a little bit more like soft sci-fi with a bit of fantasy elements, and I did really enjoy it. Like I love the theme tune and I love the world. But I do remember at the time being a bit like, oh, this is not quite what I expected.
Fair enough. It is a weird and wonderful show. AC, how about you? What was your earliest memory of Fireball XL5?
I think probably back in the day there was a lot of VHS tapes that had that little advert at the beginning of them. It was like, from the creator of Thunderbirds.
I'm gonna stop you right there. Did it go something like this?
From the creator of Thunderbirds, Gerry Anderson brings you 5 legendary television productions.
Was it something like that?
It was very much like that, yes.
Right, because that's the same as me.
It's almost exactly like you had that queued up, as if you somehow knew that.
It was going to be exactly the same memory for both of us, but yes,
I think that's where I first heard of it.
Yeah,
I think,
and then
by the early 90s, probably on a VHS for the Champions, maybe something along those lines. Right. Not a Gerry Anderson series, weirdly enough. And then I first got around to seeing the series in 2009. I ordered it along with the first season of Space 1999. So if you can picture these two things that are both made by the same company, but could not be more different from each other. And I think I alternated, tonight I'll go to Moonbase Alpha, tonight I'll go to Space City, and see how that goes. So yeah, I much like Chris, sort of, when I ended up watching it, it wasn't really what I expected it to be. It was a little crazier, little more out there.
Right.
But no, I loved it. It was great.
I think that's quite ironic, AC, considering that we've done a Space 1999 manual, and now we're sort of going back to space and doing it the sort of the sort of the 1963 equivalent.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I will just say, so my earliest memory of Fireball is also that same trailer that you were talking about. But the first episode I ever saw was Spy in Space, and it was on this VHS tape, which I'm hoping that a lot of other people will remember. Pocket Money Video, the Ghost Ship from Stingray, and Fireball, A Spy in Space. So we'll forgive them, they got the title slightly wrong. But that was my earliest memory, and it's an interesting episode to start with because it's got an interesting kind of atmosphere compared to like the other episodes. It's kind of weird and spooky in a way. So
one of the first ones I watched, and I always remember the electronic music in that one. Like when it cuts back to Space City and you get the like do, 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 and it's the film noir element of it as well, because it's very harshly lit, that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. What about you, AC? Any particular episodes that stand out to you as being one of the earliest that you might have watched? Or did you just go through the series in order?
I think I did go through them in order because I got them on DVD, so I wasn't able to sort of get them haphazardly on VHS. Yeah. But I do remember there were definitely a couple of episodes that stuck in my mind not earlier. Forgive me, it's been a long day. They stuck in my mind more so than others. And one of those was XL5 to H2O. And I remember being, even though I was, shall we say, old enough to know better, I remember being terrified of the Aquamphibian. The fact that he's just got that big jaw and the music and the fact that he seems to be pretty much unstoppable. And Wings of Danger was another one that kind of stuck with me because every time you see the mechanical birds, you get that music where it's like do 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 do. And
music seems to keep coming up as something. It is very, very distinctive what Barry Gray does in XL5. There is some really unusual stuff in there. I'm sure we will come back to talking about that later. But for now, I think we've kept everyone in suspense for long enough. Are you guys ready to talk about this little technical manual that you've been working on? This is the front cover. I believe this is the first time we've
This is the
shown
exclusive.
it.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
so I talked a bit about this when we sort of soft announced this, like earlier last year when we sort of were talking about Joe 90. But the plan was in that 2023, rather than do a big technical manual, the plan was to do 2 slimline ones, and they were going to cover lesser known shows. And our choice was Joe 90 and Fireball XL5. So so this book, I think it's about 112, 120 pages. I need to just double check that, but it's around that length. And it covers pretty much across the board everything the World Space Patrol has to offer.
Love it. Love it. And I mean, everybody is very happy to be seeing it. They love the look. They love the design. I mean,
it's in nicely alongside these ones.
So that was going to be my next question. How does it fit in with the other manuals in the series? Obviously, you've done Space 1999, UFO, and recently we did Joe 90. So now it's XL5. You've tried to sort of keep the same design kind of aesthetic. I don't know. I'm not a designer. I'm just throwing words out.
So luckily, we are we're extremely lucky because we have our friends over at Amazing 15, and they've sort of been the design leads on these manuals and they've done this wonderful consistent look across all of them, and it means that like they may look different slightly on the inside. Like we try to go through different approaches, and we can get to that when we see the interior spreads. But not only do they represent their shows really, really well, but they look phenomenal when you stick them together because there's this continuous look, if you like, between the bold colors and the wireframe on the cover and things. With Fireball, we gave it a little bit of extra glitz with with all the space backgrounds, and I really love what Marcus has done with this because it looks futuristic while also a product of the 60s.
Yeah, very retro futuristic, I will say. It is gorgeous, and the colors just really pop out at you, which is funny seeing as XL5 is obviously in black and white, but still it feels like it should be colorful. So I love the way this looks, and I love the way it goes with the rest of the series. So let's take a closer look at the special edition, because everyone always gets very excited about the special edition versions of these manuals, and indeed this one is going to be no different. There will be a very limited edition, special edition. I believe it's going to be 250 copies that will be available. These always sell out really, really quickly. They are very popular because you get such a fantastic collection of bonus items inside the the special box that it comes in. And what we've done this time around, you can probably see there's a banner going along at the bottom of the screen informing you that if you want to be notified as soon as pre-orders launch, go to shop.gerryanderson.com/pages/FireballXL5 waiting list, and there you can put your email address in, and that way it doesn't guarantee you a copy or anything like that, but what it does do is it puts you on the mailing list so that you get notified as soon as the pre-orders open. So I'll be putting that in the chat as well, but also it will be running along the bottom of the screen. So this is, just a reminder, this is not a, guarantee of getting a copy or anything like that. There are only 250, but if you sign up here, you stand a better chance probably because you'll get the notification as soon as the pre-orders go live. We're expecting those to go live in February, so be on the lookout for that. But Chris, talk a little bit about the special edition and what people can expect to find alongside the manual itself.
Well, we've got this wonderful box, again, designed by Amazing 15. We've got some art prints. So we've got the Fleet image, which features a series of fireballs, the battle cruisers, and the exploration ship from the comic, as well as a few light patrol craft. We've got size chart, which is everything I've modeled for the book, just in scale with each other. We've got the expanded galaxy map, because if you remember, in the operations room, you only see 3 sectors, which they occasionally rotate what's the label on those. But I've sort of expanded it out into a rough guide as to what sort of the WSP's sphere of influence is. And also that all comes in a fancy manila envelope. We have our normal ID card, which doubles as the number system certificate of authenticity. And we've got this cosplay patch. Shout out to Willow for helping us get the size for this. But essentially, I wanted something that would appeal to cosplayers. And I know we have a few Fireball XL5 cosplayers in the group. So this is scaled to what it should be, like on the puppets. So it's big enough to go across the chest on a yellow or white, depending on what color you prefer, turtleneck, and it would fit in with the costume quite well.
Excellent. Yes,
and we've
lots
also
of love
got
for Willow.
Cloud of a Million Lights in there as well.
Yes, the audio adventure Cloud of a Billion Lights. Didn't have an image of that to put in there, but yes, there it is in amongst the collection. So you've got the book, art prints, the patch, the ID card, and the audio story. That's a heck of a good collection, if I say so myself, and all beautifully packaged in that slipcase. So limited to 250. So make sure when pre-orders go live, you get in there quickly because they will sell out fast if the previous technical manuals are anything to go by. Now then, we're going to dive into the book itself. We're going to just show you a few sneak previews of some of the pages that are going to be in here. And I'm going to allow Chris and AC to tease as much as they are possibly allowed to about what's in the book, what you can expect to find, answer all your questions about, is this going to be included? Is that going to be included? So let's dive in with the contents page. Chris, that's a beautiful shot of XL5 coming into land there. I love that.
Particularly when dealing with a lot of the buildings, I like to get the camera as low ground as possible because I do, when I do my art, I treat these as not as models, but as real life things. And I try to bring a bit of that into the artwork. So I just thought it'd be quite nice to just see a shot of Space City looking like a bustling hub of commerce and ships coming in and out. There's usually quite a nice double page spread that covers the contents page, and I don't know, it just seemed like a good fit.
Yeah, looks gorgeous. And what's the ship in the background? Because you can kind of see there's another XL ship there in the background.
So I think,
it's got yellow stripes instead of blue by the looks of things.
So one of the advantages about, for one, you kind of see that they make subtle changes to all the XL craft in the show. I think it's the one in The Day the Earth Froze is extra vertical VTOL jets. One of the ones that gets blown up in Invasion has like a different... It's got like checkers around the central rings as opposed to other stuff. And on some of the models, you do see that the rings are brighter than on others. And that could be a product of the lighting or the just the way it's shot. But I thought it'd be quite fun to denote that like fireballs may have a subtly different purpose depending on what the colors the neck rings mean. And I think AC did a definitive list of all the fireballs mentioned in the show. And I think you came up with the idea of like interceptor fireballs and
there was a couple of different things. So I actually initially hadn't spotted the subtle difference in the shading there. So once you pointed that out, I was like, okay, what do the yellow lines denote? Okay, well, let's make them interceptor fireballs. They're not just for exploration and defense. They specifically go out hunting threats and stuff. And I think it's XL18 has the checker pattern, which is a real life thing that they use to calibrate distance for radar and scanning and things like that. So it's an experimental prototype. And then, of course, we've also got the Space Rescue version as well, which has a slightly different medical color scheme as well. But it was good fun putting that list together. And also, can I just say that I don't think I've mentioned to Chris before, but when I had to go through and sort of read through the first PDF version of this that I saw, which had all the formatted art and everything, I almost didn't want to read the text because I was so busy just like looking at every single bit of every image. Because yes, I'd seen some of them before, but I hadn't seen them in situ, all located exactly where they were going to be in the book. And I just sat there, got myself a hot chocolate because this was over Christmas, hot chocolate in front of the fire, and was just, yes, I want that as a poster. I want that as a poster. I definitely want that as a poster. So I think a lot of people will probably have the same sort of reaction. These images have to be seen up close to be believed, and they're just absolutely stunning.
Definitely. And I want to make sure that we dive into as much as possible today. So I want to show you the operations room page. And Chris, you were talking a little bit about this earlier about how the map is displayed. And I suppose between the two of you, you had to figure out what do all these buttons and control consoles and things actually do.
Well, funny enough,
what was some of the process behind that?
I left it to AC to work out why Space City spun. So Space City is AC's ball game, so I'm going to leave it over to AC here.
All right. Well, answer the question then. Why does Space City spin around? What's the definitive answer to that?
There's a twofold reason. Number one, it spins to give them a continuous view of the entirety of Space City and its operational areas. It's not just restricted to the launch rail and the main landing pad. There are other more distant areas of Space City, and they need to be able to see those on sort of a fairly constant basis. The other reason is that it provides a secondary source of power by having a giant friction motor at the base of the tower, which constantly charges while the tower is rotating, in addition to the atomic plant that already exists as its primary power source. This means that extra power can be siphoned off from the friction and sent to other generators for other operations. Because let's face it, by 2063, they will be very conscious of their energy output because they've got giant rockets blasting off every 5 seconds. So they kind of have to offset that a little bit with being a little bit creative. So that would be the twofold reason why the Space City Tower revolves.
Magnificent. Well done. Well done. Very well reasoned. Very well done. Now, of course, we've got to talk a little bit about, the star of the show, Viable XL5 itself. I mean, this to me looks like sort of the most exhaustive guide to these ships that anyone has ever produced. And it looks like, correct me if I'm wrong, you've got a little sort of Easter egg in there with Century 21. Can you explain a little bit about what that's doing there?
So it's become somewhat traditional with these manuals, but we have a tendency to go back to the concept art that was done at the time and work out what was used and what wasn't used and maybe tie it in somewhat. So people might recognize Century 21 on the right there. Not only was it the original name of the show, but the very first painting that Derek Meddings did of Fireball XL5 was of the C21. And that's also how it looked in its very first comic strip. The very, very first comic, it had the sort of Fireball had that slightly different look to it. Commander Zero had a beard, all that kind of stuff. So I wanted to tie that in as part of the backstory and eventually tie it in as to why Fireballs are called Fireball. Because there's always a little bit of a story going on here. It's just a bit of fun, and obviously I love the spaceship itself. I've got one back there. It just made it's I don't know, I just love a big splash page. I've done it with the Eagles and Skydiver and all as well.
Yep, it looks absolutely lovely. That is magnificent. And then another oddity that people remember fondly about Fireball is the launching system. And I think AC, were you the one to sort of figure out the whole system and why Space City uses this to launch their rockets, and also what happens to those trolleys that go flying off the end of the ramp? Did you have to work on this?
I will answer that with a yes, I did have to work on that, and yes, the answer is in the book, but I'll not give too much away. It just
fair enough.
From the spread that we can see there, it details each stage of the launch process, and it also gives a bit of information about what happens to the launch sleds or launch trolleys when they get flung off the end.
Yep. I mean, Willow summed it up perfectly there. Cargo wee.
Cargo wee.
Yep. Perfect. Alrighty. Well, as well as, of course, going into Fireball, the World Space Patrol has a whole host of other ships that you see across the whole series. Lots of weird and wonderful designs that Chris and Daisy, I'm guessing you've just been trying as hard as possible to catalog every single thing that appears in the show, or did you have to show some restraint in places? What can people expect to find when looking at the rest of the World Space Patrol fleet in this manual?
There was definitely a lot more than I remembered whenever I did the original page count. But no, we get to deep dive into a couple of the active ships, and obviously we've got the Space Q ship here, which was a pretty fun design. I think it's less the challenge of finding all the ships. I think it's because obviously in the time, a lot of the spaceships for Fireball, compared to what whenever the other 3 books we've done are Century 21 at the top of their game, whereas Fireball is the second show that AP Films done. Am I right about that, or would it be the third?
Second or third, I suppose, depending on how
the second show they worked on with Lou Grade.
Yeah. So it's a bit different in that everything is still made out of whatever they found at Woolworths. And it's incorporating that style and sort of adding a little bit of Century 21 magic to it. So you can see on the Q ship here, I've added the panel lines that they would have done later on over in UFO, and maybe added a tiny bit of more detail, but for the most part, try to have the things look as authentic as they basically did in the show. I think there's a really, one of the fun things about Fireball is that obviously Star Trek wouldn't come along for another couple of years, and Star Trek really marked the first sort of big expanded universe where they would have technical manuals for them and things like that. So it's been quite interesting going back and pretending that Star Trek the original series never happened and trying to revisit that whole how would you do that from scratch again.
Love it. Excellent. I love that approach. Yeah.
We've also got schematics and other stuff sort of in there as well.
They must have been, just great fun to look at some of those, let's say, cheap and cheerful spaceship designs that are in the original show and try to think, how does this actually work? I'm guessing there must have been some interesting ones. We can see a few of them on this page. I mean, I can't quite make out the name, but the very long one that we have there.
Space train.
What's going on there? That's a space train.
So this kind of ties in. We do other stuff, but obviously, as I love the comics, and 3 of these spaceships come from the comics. So they're all 3 of them are Mike Noble designs. The space train was just a lovely idea. I just love the idea of a big long spaceship in space. The last one there, it's the one at the very start of the giant animal story where there's a giant mouse on board. And I just love to be able to incorporate all these little designs and sort of all the expanded TV 21 world building that they did at the time, and just tie it all back into the original show and try and make everything match up.
Yeah,
I don't have the spread for it, but we do a section on the Asterans. And I did sort of reverse engineer images of them in with the puppets as well, just to kind of tie it all together.
Excellent. Yeah, I love that you not only is this a technical manual, but it's also something that ties together the extended universe material as well as the main show. It really is so comprehensive, and particularly, as for you mentioned that the comics were the first way that you kind of discovered Fireball in the first place. I imagine it must be quite satisfying to finally be able to reason putting the 2 together, because they were different approaches and different types of storytelling. So the fact that you kind of now can meld the 2 together is very, very exciting. So I love that. Let's see what we have next. So you talked a little bit about some of the aliens and things like that, but yeah, as well as weird and wonderful spaceship designs for the World Space Patrol, you also had some very interesting stuff going on with some of the villains and some of the aliens in the show. So what was that like, kind of approaching some of those
I love the
wacky
world
designs?
building, and I love taking all the little snippets that you get about all the different alien races in like across the show, and just tying them into things. Like they mentioned that the Archons have been like a thorn in their side beforehand, so you have to work out like how does that work. They're out of they're beyond the sector space, while at the same time they're constantly being annoying. They have this sort of arrogance to them, and they have their special spaceships that can't go that far. Yeah, so we get to tie in a little bit of a story. We do the same for the Aquamphibian, the Astrons, the Granitoids, the Subterranes. I just have a lot of fun with it.
Excellent.
I think this is also a pretty good juncture to point out that Fireball XL5 is looking a little different for people who've been looking across these spreads.
Yes, it looks quite a bit more colorful.
Yes,
than we might have seen before.
So I know there's a little bit. There's definitely two mindsets about whether these shows should be colorized or not, and I completely respect those who think they should stay black and white for the effect, the film noir style of it. But because this is a reference book, I thought this would be a good opportunity to basically see what the show looked like in color and just give that little extra level of immersion to all the photos. So there are no black and white photos in this book.
Wow, none at all.
None.
You've colorized everything.
Yes. So
that is amazing.
Talk about making an extra rod for my back here.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, and as a result, Fireball XL5 is now the most colorful out of the 4 books we've done.
That's amazing.
I should also
I had no idea that you'd done everything.
I also should mention this juncture. There is another section which AC covered, which is the crew bios. I didn't have a spread for it, but AC, if you'd just like to say a little bit about that.
Well, I suppose I could. The crew bios, much in the style of the previous manuals, cover the main characters from the series. So we have the crew of XL5 itself. We have a couple of the characters at Space City. We've got Zuni and Robert as well in there. And it just gives you a little bit of the history. If you weren't aware and always wanted to know what Venus's name is, her real name, her birth name, it's in there. Not going to tell you what it is now, though. Some of you may already know, though, if you've been fans from the TV 21 days and various annuals and things. So there is the crew bios. There's a heck of a lot of stuff on Space City itself, and an awful lot of fun to write. I think out of the 3 manuals that I've worked on, this was more about cutting loose, not worrying too much about how crazy things could get, as long as it didn't break the walls of the reality of the series. Pretty much anything went, as long as it didn't conflict with continuity and other things like that, and anything that had gone before. It was fair game. And when you look at things like the crew and what we know about them, I went through all 39 episodes of the series and filled a notebook with every little scrap of information that you learn about every one of the main characters. And by the end of it, I had about half a page on each of them. There is not very much information in this.
Not much.
Like, I think the most impressive things I had about Professor Maddock was knows how to play some musical instruments. Sometimes isn't that good as experiments. Sometimes he's really good at his experiments. Also has invented time machine, has used it a grand total of once.
Love it.
So various has invented world-breaking technology.
Yes.
Yeah.
Has not chosen to use it.
Has not chosen to use it. It's gathering dust in the shed somewhere.
Yeah.
Love it. So yeah, so essentially with what little is presented in the show, which is kind of fair enough because it was, just a sort of adventure of the week thing. The characters didn't necessarily need to be that well fleshed out, but for the purposes of this manual, you've kind of gone in and worked with what was available, worked with what was written maybe in spin-off material, things like annuals and magazines and that kind of thing, and you've just expanded on it and kind of made it into a, well, if this was kind of real, this is maybe what this person's kind of character history would be like, which is great. I think that's a perfectly good and valid approach. It's interesting, when I was working on the Joe 90 manual, I had so much material to work with. The writers had, written pages and pages and pages of material all about the characters, which is pretty unique to Joe 90 as far as the Super Mario Nation shows are concerned, because most of the series do not have that much character kind of backstory going on. So it's great that you've had the opportunity to develop some of that for the Fireball XL5 characters. So that is going to be yet another kind of bonus addition to this manual, as well as all the technical stuff, as well as all the world building or universe building that goes on here. You've also got all the character information you could possibly want as well. Am I missing anything out as far as what's going to be in here? I mean, I feel like that's enough, but
obviously we also covered the equipment and technology as well. So there's a bunch of lovely stuff on jetmobiles and radios and ray guns, both variants that you see in the show. And yeah, just a
so
lot of
people
fun.
could build their own jetmobile.
I don't recommend building your own.
Can you guarantee that someone could build a safe working jetmobile if they buy this manual?
Just like that Mitchell and Webb jetpack sketch. Yes, you probably could, but can they be trusted?
Can they? Yeah, very, very good, very safe. We do not recommend that anyone actually tries that.
Everyone jetmobiles. Yes.
Yes. So, I mean, that's the technical operations manual in a nutshell. So just to remind everyone, pre-orders for this are going to launch in February, and it's going to be the special edition limited to 250, and then also the standard edition as well. To be in with a chance of getting hold of the special edition before it sells out, we recommend that you go to shop.gerryanderson.com/pages/Fireball XL5 waiting list. And if you sign up there, you will get an email notification when the pre-orders go live. And that will give you the best possible chance of being able to pick up this gorgeous special edition with all those extra art prints, the XL5 patch, Cloud of a Billion Lights audio story, and the ID as well as of course the book itself, all in a beautiful looking slipcase. I mean, gorgeous looking package, and I for one am very excited to attempt to pick one of these up. It's going to look really, really nice. So thank you, chaps, for walking us. Yes, definitely going to need some extra shelf space. And of course, this is just one in a continuing range.
We've already started the next one.
The next one is also on the card. So, just make sure if you want a complete collection, you've definitely got to keep up with it. So excellent. Rob Cassidy wants to know if we're doing mint flavored oxygen pills. Alas, not on this occasion.
But we've got plenty of radiation mints if you want one. Anti-radiation mints, not radiation mints.
Yeah, no, you don't want mints that give you radiation. That would be counterproductive. Excellent. Tony's workbench is very interested to get a close-up look at all the various aircraft and spacecraft from the show. So yes, this manual will be an excellent resource for model makers out there. I look forward to seeing what people are able to do with this. Of course, everyone already wants to know what's coming next.
Well, we can't give you too many hints, but what I will say is I had no idea that there's so much information about Dick Spanner.
Okay. that could be a bit of a red herring, possibly. Indra is just asking,
some investigatoring.
It's just asking when we can expect this to ship. So, as I say, pre-orders launch in February. We're expecting general release sometime in March. So again,
March, April.
Stay tuned for that. We will make sure that we are, communicating all the various dates and stuff when we know them. As far as I understand it, right now, might as well give people a peek behind the scenes. You're sort of at the stage of you kind of got the first proof of the book.
We're on our third
ready.
Checking pass.
Okay, so currently right now you're going through quality assurance, checking that everything is up to scratch, and then obviously it has to go to print and distribution and all the rest of it. So there's a lot of work that goes into these manuals. It's not just Chris and AC writing it. There's a lot of other people behind the scenes who are working on it as well.
Shout out to Steph, our editor, Tim and Jamie, obviously our producers. Marcus, our wonderful designer.
They all have to put up with an awful lot from us because we're both divas.
And also Christina Logan, who's our who does the uniform illustrations. She does additional effects as well. So
that's excellent. Yes, I actually did want to mention the uniforms as well. So has Christina kind of gone in and looked at all the different variants that appear in the show?
So
and
the references I sent you, references I sent her, more a mix of the comic and the TV show, and obviously, we do have some color references of what they look like, but there are differences between uniforms in the comic and the TV show. Obviously, mainly in the color of the turtleneck that they have. So what she's done is kind of gone for a happy medium. They're still in. If you remember her work on Space 1999 and UFO, it's still in that 1960s sort of fashion image style, but we cover all the four main uniforms that we see in the show, and they look very good.
Excellent. So just in case there wasn't enough in the book already, you've also gone and added the uniforms as well. I mean,
but wait, there's more. Yeah.
That's always more. It's amazing really how much you are able to get into those sort of what you say 120 or so pages. There really is a lot that you're able to get into all of that, and credit to you for kind of consolidating it all, because one of the other things to consider is you don't necessarily want to get too into the weeds on certain things, because that could get tedious. I feel like you always strike the right balance between, technical and nerdy and interesting and insightful, but not boring. Never boring.
Well, funnily enough, I did grow up with this kind of thing.
Right.
Which, talking about, it's a wonderful book and it covers everything. So I'm sort of used to kind of straddling this happy medium between, essentially a textbook. A lovely textbook, which I have read quite a bit, or something with a bit more pictures and colors and things like that. That sort of shows off the production design of the show a bit more. It is important to mention that we are only doing the short version manuals for these two. We're going to be back up to long form manuals starting this year. So the next one will be getting into the weeds of certain things.
Excellent. Yes, all those details about crossroads to crime that you that you weren't expecting. Yes, excellent. Right. Well, I think now might be a good time for us to go to a little Fireball XL5 flavored commercial break, where we'll be taking a look at some interesting vintage bits and pieces that I have pulled out of the archive. So enjoy the show, folks, and we will be back in about 5 minutes time. And of course, we're going to be talking more about Fireball XL5. We're going to be joined by a special guest and just more fun and games to come. So see you in a short while.
Stand by for launching. It's Zoom with 3 new flavors and free picture cards. Start collecting famous aircraft. There's a free card with every Zoom. On sale now.
Commander Steve Zodiac and his crew as they blast off to celebrate 30 years of spaceborne adventures in Fireball XL5. Steve Zodiac is the pilot of Fireball XL5.
That's right.
His appearance is impeccable.
That's why we're here.
His exploits are renowned.
Your fireball is very impressive.
And he has the most perfect hairdo in the galaxy.
I've done it. I've done it.
Along with Venus, the ship's doctor,
Is it necessary to do this every day?
he travels the starways, a friend of everyone in need.
Ah, it is good to have someone I can trust.
Join in the conquests of Steve Zodiac
If you don't, we'll be forced to destroy your planet.
in Fireball XL5.
Zoom! It's Zoom, the new ice space lolly with 3 fruit flavor stages. And there's a space picture card with every Zoom. Get your Zoom now.
Nick at Night presents Sing Along with Bob Down. It's time to sing the theme to Fireball XL5.
I wish I was a spaceman, the fastest car alive. I'd fly you around the universe in Fireball XL5. Way out in space together, conquerors of the sky. And my heart would be a fireball. Fireball. Each time I gaze into your starry eyes, we take the path to Jupiter. Maybe very soon we cruise along the Milky Way and land upon the moon. Our wonderland of stardust will zoom away to Mars, and my heart would be a fireball. A fireball. You will be my Venus of the stars. And you will be my Venus of the stars.
Fireball XL5, one of the feel-good TV shows on Nick at Night.
Look out! It's new Zoom. New flavors and a new picture card series. 40 famous engines. A free color card with every Zoom. Get Zoom Ice Lolly now.
Stand by for action.
Anderson Entertainment presents 3 brand new audio dramas from the worlds of Fireball XL5, Stingray, and Captain Scarlet.
Careful, Matt. It's another eruption right beneath us.
I'm holding on, Steve. But can you steady the ship?
Stingray! 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 Stingray!
Radar shows missile on target, Commander.
But will it get there soon enough before the terrorfish fires?
That's right, Troy. Why, at close range, a missile from that thing could blast right through the ocean door and into the heart of Marineville itself.
Slowly, it opened its single glowing red eye, and then turned to take aim at its unsuspecting prey.
Oh God, look out!
Scarlet's warning came just in time.
Leading the fight, one man fate has made indestructible. His name, Captain Scarlet.
Available now from the Gerry Anderson store.
AC, tell us, what's the latest news from TV21?
Well, it's not looking good, Jack. There's a Fireball mystery flight, and there's some shenanigans going on. So I think I better leave them to it.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that news update. Keep us posted. Please keep us posted. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is a Fireball XL5 live stream, where we have been talking about the beautiful World Space Patrol Technical Operations Manual. We're taking our first look at some of the pages. I'm joined by Mr. Chris Thompson and Mr. Andrew Clements, and we've been talking about the contents of this magnificent book that they have written all about Fireball XL5 and everything that could possibly be related to Fireball XL5. So just as a reminder, you can go ahead and sign up for notifications of when the pre-order goes live. The pre-orders are going live in February, and you can sign up. Go to shop.gerryanderson.com/pages/Fireball XL5 waiting list to sign up for email notifications there. Right. Well, that brings us to we're going to kind of relax a bit now. We're going to have some fun. We're going to have some games. We're going to talk about just all things Fireball XL5 because I feel like everyone's seen the manual now. We're like we've checked that box. We have well and truly shown that off. So what I was thinking we could start with was just a little conversation starter. It wouldn't be a stream involving me in any capacity if we didn't have a tier maker. So what we are going to be doing now, gentlemen, is we are going to be ranking we are going to be ranking all of the sort of main cast of Fireball XL5 because there's such a broad range of characters in this show, and I feel like some of them people like, maybe some of them we don't like as much. So we're just going to kind of go through them and see where they sit in our little ranking system. As you can see, I've got the full range here of different categories in the XL5 universe. So we're going to start with Commander Zero. Where would you chaps be putting him? Is he real boss or is he an absolute tootie? Where would we put him?
He is a bit of a git sometimes, isn't he?
He's a lovable rogue. Of a git. He is the sort of, I mean, come on. The episode Whistle for Danger, he gives Zuni, who we'll talk about in a minute, he gives Zuni a whistle purely to get revenge on, Steve and Venus and to make their life more difficult. Purely so he'll be annoying. I don't think very highly of Zero, to be honest. I don't know. What do you think, AC?
I think that wishing they were a spaceman is probably about somewhere, but if it was possible to go between that and the okay level, but we'll stick him. I reckon we'll stick him there.
Okay, all right, because I guess he is the boss. He's under a lot of pressure. So yeah, all right, fair enough. Now, I mean, we have been talking about Zuni, and I feel like we probably just want to get this out of the way.
Yeah, we're not going to discuss it. Stick him in the bottom.
Okay, all right, fine. That's all done. Alrighty. Yeah, no more conversation needed about that. Let's see. Who shall we talk about next?
I'm going to call it now. Robert the Robot, straight into A tier.
Yeah. Are we saying he's a real boss, or is he all systems go go go?
I think he's a real boss. I
think he's a real boss as well. I honestly, it's amazing to me how he is, a limited character. Obviously, doesn't say a lot, but at the same time, he's very likable. I don't know why. He puts up with a lot of nonsense. Let's say that.
I would let him hold my drink. He's a good lad, and obviously we've done films with him.
You could use his head to pour your drink into, since his head is basically a glass.
Yeah, exactly. I never thought about that before, but you could not be more right. Alrighty. Well, let's see. If we're going to go sort of middle of the road. I don't know. Where would we put Lieutenant 90?
I would still say probably real boss for Lieutenant 90.
You think so?
The man is a legend. He single-handedly escaped from an exploding rocket in an ejection seat. And no, I suppose there's a day in the life of the Space General where he.
It does all go to his head.
It all goes to his head. Even
But
if
it is a
just
dream sequence, so it doesn't really happen.
But even so, the potential is there. So
I think all systems go. I think he's like, if it wasn't for that one slip, he would be definite A tier. But unfortunately, Lieutenant 90 just can't be trusted with all that responsibility.
Fair enough. All right. Well, let's talk about Eleanor Zero, because we haven't been too nice about her husband.
I think
First Lady of Space City. Where's she going?
Straight in the middle, because we just really don't know that much about her. So maybe she's terrible. Maybe she's the person who saves Space City anytime there's not an episode going on. Like, we just don't know. So I think it would be unfair to put her anywhere else.
All right. Well, we've got a fairly even spread right now, so I'm happy with that. I guess along those same lines, let's talk about Jonathan.
Absolute seriously, Jonathan's a menace.
Yep.
Yeah.
Get him out of here.
Yeah. All right. I think that's fair enough. Jock, Chief Engineer.
Oh, this is a difficult one, because I do like the elements of the character that are good, but I really do not like the elements of the character that are not. And I think quite a lot of the time... Are you
suggesting he says some problematic things?
I'm suggesting that he says some very problematic things. And I don't... The fact that the other characters also call him out for saying these things, and it's not just something we're retroactively applying to it, it's like... Would you say he would be good company for Commander Zero there?
I think so. I think because there's good aspects to the character, but unfortunately, like you said, he does have some very, very hot takes which don't pass the T test.
Alrighty. Well, yeah, I think that's a fairly safe place to put him then. That so memorable character who I couldn't find a color picture of, Ken Ross.
Character Ken Ross.
Okay, let's work it out. Ken has destroyed or has been semi-responsible for destroying at least 2 XL cruisers, hasn't he? So he's a menace, but he seems to be a fairly likable and weirdly sounds like Steve Zodiac kind of menace. Yeah. So, or does he? Am I thinking of the other guy?
I think you might be thinking of the other guy.
See, this is why Ken needs to hang out with different people, so I don't get it confused.
Does he sort of fall into the same trap as Eleanor Zero of maybe not being super memorable, but not being too offensive?
Sure. Let's open this one to the chat. Ken Ross, what do you think? Popular character. Let's drop Ken for the moment. Let's move on to our big three, and then by the time we get to the end, we'll know where to put Ken.
All right. We'll put Ken in okay for the moment, but we'll see if that changes.
The council will decide his fate.
We're down to the big three. Let's go with Professor Matic.
I will never not love Professor Matic. He kind of has to be real boss, otherwise I'm leaving this stream right now.
Okay. Does he have any faults at all that we can think of?
Again, there's the aforementioned develops a time machine, and then just forgets he has a time machine. Which
that is
true. I don't know if that makes Professor Matic some sort of like cosmic horror entity that's like he's the most powerful entity in the universe, but just occasionally forgets. I think he's either real
chat
boss.
Certainly seems to be suggesting that he's real boss.
We're going real boss.
I mean, if he's cool enough to invent a time machine and then not really care about it next week, I think that's pretty boss. Dr. Venus. Here's another person who has to put up with an awful lot of nonsense.
With a lot.
Yeah,
she puts up with so much.
I think she puts up with the Heroic Command and also her great taste in Beach House. I think she's got to go to the top.
And music.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
the finest collection of vinyls in Space City.
That's potentially the only collection of vinyls in Space City. Who knows? Everyone seems to go to her house to listen to music. That's like the place to go, clearly.
Because she has a house.
She has a house. Yeah, none of the other characters do. It's well, I mean, literally, doesn't Professor Matic sleep on XL5?
Yep.
So he doesn't even have his own. Okay, all right.
In recurringly changing living quarters, I might add.
Yes. Well, I'm sure you had a lot of fun going through all of that for the technical manual. And finally, where's Steve going?
I think Lieutenant 90's looking a little lonely, I reckon, because Steve would be real boss, except one of the very first things that we hear him do is basically ask for a cup of coffee. And it's like, come on, dude, you might have saved the universe several times over, but if you're not going to get your own hot drinks, I mean, you can't be top tier.
That's fair enough. I think that's a good place for him to go. He should, if he respected his co-workers a little more, he would go up to the real boss category. But I think that's very fair. I do just want to check in because we do have a special visitor, and I do want to get their opinion. So I am going to invite into the stream Mr. Lee Sullivan. Hello, sir. How are you today?
Hello, I'm very well, thank you very much. I just rushed away from a family tea.
Oh goodness! Yeah. Well, we will try not to keep you for too long, but I did want to kind of immediately just call upon you to what do you think of our judgment here of the various Fireball XL5 characters? Would you say we've got it right, or is there anyone that you think they've been served an injustice?
Do you know, to my absolute shame, I don't even know who Jonathan Zero is. He's probably the Commander Zero's boy. Is that right?
He is indeed. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then good. He belongs with Zuni.
Excellent. You agree with the general consensus that Zuni should be sent far away?
Yeah, certainly not home.
Yeah, absolutely. I
don't want him go home. God, what a wealth that is. A Lazoon in your house, defecating everywhere, probably. I wouldn't have one. It'd be like having a giraffe, wouldn't it? Interesting, but not very practical.
A giraffe that talks back.
Yes,
but only with a very limited vocabulary. I mean,
don't they do a scene with him and Robert where they just simply repeat things to each other? That's a fond memory. Endless loop. Welcome home.
It's lovely. Isn't it just delightful? I mean, Robert, to his credit, does manage to hold his own in that very heated debate. Well, excellent. Well, Lee, thank you for making your judgment on our
I have to say, ranking. I totally agree with Robert. Robert is the number one guy, and the one. It is inexplicable why they didn't make a toy of him at the time, and because that would have sold bucket loads. I know it would be difficult, but it was the real character I wanted to know about, and I've recently bought a little reproduction of a Jetmobile, which has a new. It's one of the old ones, which there was Steve and Venus. They're rare as hen's teeth. But the guy has made fantastic versions of them again, one with Robert on. So I'm really looking forward to putting that together. It's about me. I might have done it before this. So. But speaking of Jetmobiles, here is a Jetmobile.
Oh, what a gorgeous thing!
Yeah, this is. I wish I could say this was mine from the 1960s. It takes the place of the one I had. And that has Zuni on, which you'll just have to bear with me for that.
We'll have to put up with that.
It's a very strange toy. I'll try and go in a bit closer with Steve's eyes, which are particularly worrying, as they are kind of they're jewels. They're sort of sparkly jewels, and it gives them an absolutely weird persona. I think I always found that very odd.
Does his eyes light up?
Well, Zuni's sitting behind him, so maybe they do.
Oh, lovely. Well, we'd love to talk more about your
conversation down several levels.
Oh, please do. We welcome it. To be honest, I've been singing the praises of Chris and AC for their work on the technical manual for most of the evening. So it would be nice to kind of bring the conversation down a little bit.
I'm lost here because I don't have it. So I'm going to sing in praises because I know it will be excellent. But I don't have a copy, so I can just.
Well, none of us do. This is the exclusive first look. We should probably tell you what this stream is about. That we invited you to join. So this is the first unveiling of the technical operations manual. It's being launched for pre-order in February and should see general release sometime in March. I'm sure you know as well as anyone else that these things take a lot of time to put together, and there's a lot of people behind the scenes who work on them. So but we've been.
I think so far have just been wonderful. So anything with these august gentlemen involved is going to be good. So I'm just sad I'm not involved in some way, but I shall joyfully read it. So
excellent.
Thank you, Lee.
I mean, is this the kind of thing growing up with Fireball XL5 you would have liked to have seen when you were watching the show first time round?
Absolutely, yeah. I'll put this in context. I was probably Fireball is 62, isn't it? And or thereabouts. And I would have been 4 at the time, and I was watching them on their first run, and I was absolutely the right age for it. I haven't developed very much distance from that, really, but it was my first space adventure, the exposure to space as an idea of a fun place to be, and it was fantastic. And of course, with any kind of children's series, there's always a bit of a lag between the program being on, and you can watch that week by week, but you have to wait a whole week before the next one comes on, and getting a toy made of it, and that the merchandising was probably pretty quick, but I'd still got my supercar models from watching that, and I got a little metal version of supercar and the big plastic one, which I sniff occasionally. Regular will know my vinyl addiction.
That has been mentioned in the chat a few times. Yes.
Well, still smelling lovely, I can tell you that. But so I used to try, but of course the thing is that you're very fickle when you're a child, and you try and I tried to convert supercar into Fireball XL5 because that's hell with his supercar. Fireball is the thing that I want to see, and I tried to like sellotape one of the supercar fins onto the back of supercar so that it would look a bit more like Fireball XL5. It still had the wings, so that was okay, but the cockpit was a little large. But then somehow my mum and dad found out that there was this Airfix type kit, which is usually known as the Kit Master, and my dad made me, and this is the original one. So this is my version.
Cool.
That is
my constructed version of the Kit Master, and it's a fantastic piece of work. It's really, I think it's got, rather disappointingly for me, Venus sitting next to Steve, but they are actually.
You'd prefer Robert, perhaps?
Well, probably when I was a teenager, I might have switched, but no, Robert. Ultimately, I can see the charms of Venus, but the Kit Master thing was fantastic. This has a particular story that my dad made this for me, and when you're young, time doesn't work in the same way, and the curing of the Humbrol enamel paint to do the red, and he painted, for some reason, he painted this section white on the fin, but the smell of that just, I still feel nostalgic for that now. I don't know if they make it the same way these days, or perhaps they've had to make it safer or something, but It was really addictive. No, I was a very olfactory kind of child, I think. But this was used. I treasured this, and then, as with all, I think most young men, I started to not treasure it so much. So I kind of took it out in the garden and threw it around a bit, and I made the mistake of leaving it out once. And there were two younger children living next door. And they got through the fence somehow and found this. And they did. I'll detach Fireball Junior there. Oof, there he goes.
Fancy.
And,
Nice.
and they realised that they could use it as an implement. So it's something for them, and they really smashed it to bits. So this is my reconstructed version. I carefully put it all back together and filled it with model filler and whatnot, and gave it a proper airbrushing finish. And it's like I wouldn't have the time or patience to do it now, but it is a much beloved thing, and it's my oldest companion, I think.
Out of interest, whenever you were a kid, how would you have known what color Fireball was? Did it come with sort of like the colors in the box, or?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't have any knowledge of what the box was like. It probably had good. I mean, it's a very well-made kit. I think it was Airfix, but by another name. But it would have had really good instructions with it, and instructions in those days always used to specify where the colours went. I don't know where my dad got the white on the fin from, but I was convinced that's what it was for many years, and then finally saw the program again. Because that, again, we saw Fireball. Fireball was around for maybe 2 or 3 years, and then it vanished, really, for to all intents and purposes, for a decade or so, at least, as far as I was concerned, probably longer than that. So I didn't see Fireball until I was 20 again, I shouldn't think. So that was a huge belt of nostalgia. But the kit was just it was fantastic, because it is very detailed. It's as far as I can tell very accurate. And I also had there's a catapult kind of version, which is about the same size. That's for if you really didn't want your model anymore. It basically you kind of aimed Fireball at the sky and catapulted it, and a space-suited Steve Zodiac then emerged. I don't know how this worked, but in part of as it reached its apogee, the top bit of the fuselage opened up, and Steve came out in a spacesuit, hanging under a parachute, and having abandoned his crashing Fireball, came down to Earth in some foreign field miles away.
Love it. I mean, isn't that an AC will correct me if I'm wrong, but there's an episode of The Saint
there is
where it's demonstrated by none other than Roger Moore himself.
Oh, really? Oh, how fantastic.
Yeah, I think there's a clip of it that floats around. I can't remember the episode at all.
I think it was the man who likes toys is the name of the episode.
Very appropriate then. Perfect.
Yeah. They knew their audience, didn't they?
Yeah. Well, as far as other, talked about the toys a lot, but of course, I'm sure the TV21 have quite an influence, and I would hazard a guess that TV21 might have had a bit of an influence on your trajectory, as it were. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, it sent me into orbit every week. There's no doubt about that. TV21 is was the most amazing phenomenon, because you had, I had been reading really TV Comic actually first off with Fireball. That was in there, drawn by the wonderful Neville Main, who probably never spent more than half an hour on any page he ever drew. But he was, I might be doing him a disservice, but he very, very, very fast work. You can see it, and he didn't muck around much. But he did do some very nice drawings of Fireball. And actually, Chris, that's where colour schemes actually were available, sort of, and the annuals came out. The first Fireball annual had a fantastic. They all had really fantastic covers on them. I think probably by Eric Eden. Certainly the inner sleeve was, and so you got to see what Fireball looked like. But TV Comic was great, but a bit junior, because I would have been a discerning 5-year-old by the time I was reading that. And then TV21 came along, and that just blew everything out of the water, really, because it was suddenly very much aimed at the older end of the child market, and drawn by some of the most wonderful professionals working in comics, and Frank Bellamy and the Embletons and Mike Noble, of course. All those people were just fantastic artists. And you had the Dalek strip as well, so I was just absolutely hooked. And that was a really magical thing to come out, because it was so well produced, and it looked like it was a very professionally produced piece of work. It was probably at least as good as the Eagle, which was its sort of predecessor in terms of quality science fiction boys stuff. But TV21 had this magic of having more than one Anderson thing going on in it, because you've got, I think Stingray is extant when it starts, so you suddenly have pictures of Stingray, which I'd never seen before, actually stuck into the comic strips, which was actually, I love the drawings, but just to see any kind of photograph, color photograph of anything back then was really quite exceptional. There you go, absolutely. See, that. Look at that. That's Titans. Is that Titans Undersea layer?
Yeah, it's Titanica.
It's Titanica, yeah. And how could I forget the name? What an artist he was. And there's a picture of Stingray up in the top there as well. I mean, that stuff, I can't. It's difficult to explain to people now, because now everyone has color TVs and they have video recorders or whatever has replaced video recorders. I believe there are other. We didn't really have any kind of media stuff, and then came with TV21, and you suddenly had all this wonderful stuff, brilliant artwork, great stories, actually, if one dare say it, more advanced level stories going on with your favorite remembered characters. Because Fireball was in the past for me then. It was like 2 years back or 3 years or something ago, and you kind of sort of remembered it fondly, but it was given a complete new lease of life in TV21. Absolutely amazing stuff.
Yeah. And were there, I mean, you've already mentioned a few of the artists that were involved, but was there a particular artist or artists that the work really stood out to you, and that was the version for you that you particularly attached to?
Yeah, well, I it's too muddled up with my personal friendship with him now, but it was always Mike Noble. His work was just ridiculously good, and he had such a great dynamic style, so that he later on, I always say this about him, he used to make comic strips of the Famous Five. Okay, Gary Russell's Famous Five, I have to say, and he would draw things that, in my hands, as someone who's not really fit to lick his boots, he would draw a tea party or something, and it would be the most dynamic thing you've ever seen. There would be people lurching into the frame with a cup of tea, and someone else picking up some, reaching across the table to pick up a sandwich or something. In the background, there's a dog jumping up and down, doing something else. And he couldn't do a still page. It's what he referred to. It's not quite what the word storytelling doesn't mean it now, but he called it storytelling, which was choreographing all the figures and actions so that it was delivering you the story. I mean, it is storytelling, but that's not quite how it's used now. But he was just a master at it, and everything. So if you give him something like Fireball XL5, which is a dynamic thing anyway, and you've got space and all the rest of it, and transparent robots, and absolutely up for doing all that and did it supremely well. So his wasn't quite maybe because Frank Bellamy's always lauded as the greatest of the artists, I guess, and Embleton is a fantastic artist on Stingray. But for me, it was always Mike Noble's stuff. It appealed to me. Whatever it is I get out of comics, it appealed to me most.
Excellent.
I was always particularly for like this, but in general, like the way that Mike draws spacecraft, like the way he designs like his space train, like all the Astron ships, like that's like it's just all felt like it's its own universe. There we go. And it feels immediately iconic and recognizably him.
No, it's wonderful, isn't it? I'm always at a loss when people talk about my own work and they say, I can always tell it's your style, and I really have no idea what my style is at all, and I can't really quite believe I've got one. So I know when you see Mike's work, you can absolutely tell it's his and no one else's. And the designer stuff is fantastic. What a great wheeze that was, designing the Astrons. That's your dream character as a comic strip artist. You don't have to draw anything except a little on a disc. But of course, in a lot of people's hands, discs are not so easy because they're ellipses, and I'm a real tartar about ellipses. I bored Gerry Anderson to death talking about ellipses, and Mike and I talk about them quite a lot as well. But he was so good at doing all that stuff, and so all the machinery looks really solid. It always used to amuse me that Ron Turner, whose work also featured in Anderson stuff, he did one Fireball, didn't he? I think one Fireball towards the end, and his ships are also completely identifiable, and his style is so iconic. But they all look as if they're made out of plasticine. There's a slight, you could just get hold of them, just deform them slightly. Yeah, that's right. But I mean, it's not in no way denigrating him. It was just that is a different thing. And Mike's stuff was much more tightly constructed, and even when he played, he took quite a few liberties with Fireball from time to time. But he was just a genius, I think.
Absolutely.
We've gone about it forever. I was lucky enough to get to meet him and get to know him, and we became friends. And I did a few pieces of artwork with him towards the end of his life, and that was more than I could ever have expected.
That is one. Yes, I remember those pieces well. They're absolutely stunning. Really was a great collaboration.
It was for
me. Absolutely, yes, must have been a great honor. That's wonderful. And Chris, I just want to bounce back to you as far as the work on the manual. Taking all of Mike Noble's work and the other artists. Is that a daunting prospect, sort of recreating some of those pieces, or were you like, I've got this?
Not really. They kind of just slot right in. Like we talked about the Astrons earlier. Like I said earlier, we've done images with them beside the Puppets Lee, and they slot right in. Like, you would think that was from the original show, and it makes you wonder why they didn't do that, because like they would have been so easy to puppet. And again, like Lee, whenever you did your strip for the new comic anthology, like you clearly made a decision yourself on like what elements of the comic to use and what elements of the TV show to use, and you found like a really good balance with it, I found. So it was kind of the same idea as that, just sort of anytime you sort of saw, like, for instance, we show you the underside of Space City where all the hangars are, and we get to make it really colorful, like the way that Mike probably would have done it. Like some big have some big machines and some big fuel tanks kicking around, and have everything with a nice colorful background to denote his area.
And the thing, one of the wonderful things Mike used to do was unnecessary detail. Having accused him of being lazy with the Astrons, it's just rubbish. I'm just joking. But he would put in, like, if there's a control panel nearby, he will have completely designed it, put loads of switches on, usually nothing like what was actually on the show. And fair enough to him. He used to do the same thing with Star Trek later on. There was all these knobs and levers, and it was marvelous because he took the trouble and went way beyond what I would do as a fundamentally lazy person. But he wasn't fundamentally lazy. He just couldn't stop himself from putting detail in. So you would, I imagine that if you're doing backgrounds, any kind of hangers and stuff in Mike's work, they're filled with things going on in the background. You just think he used to do those a double page spread every week and sent it off on Friday night up to London on the train. And in that week, I mean, because it was so regular, he must have been able to do complete roughs for the thing, and then do the pencil work, and then the line work, and then the color work. And his coloring technique wasn't simple. He put layer after layer after layer of ink wash to build up the red and the green stuff. But there's all that going on. And he would draw all this extra stuff as well, and transparent screens, and you could see things behind the transparent screen just to give himself something else to do, So I'm really looking forward to seeing the technical manual, because boy, you must have had your work cut out for you trying to keep up with that kind of stuff. That's why I didn't. It
also helps because Mike also drew the atoll that Space City's on, and he also made it consistent. So now we know where everything is on the atoll thanks to Mike.
Oh right, that's right. He used to draw. He would keep things. He would keep tracings of everything he'd done, because he wouldn't actually have a physical copy until the thing came out published. He wouldn't have a physical copy of what he'd just done last week. He would have to go back, and so he could keep it consistent. So he would keep. I'm sure he kept tracings of his drawings of the atoll, so that he could remind himself how it was. And you see that sometimes, that they're almost identical retreads of the work.
And it's great that now, Lee, you've been able to, continue on that tradition, and Chris as well, just for exquisite detail in all of these things, and being able to treat all these Anderson shows with the love and attention they deserve. Lee, I mean, we could talk for hours and hours and hours about the wonderful artwork and Fireball and TV21 and all of that, but want to respect your time, sir. And we've also got a show to do, and I will get told off if we run on too long. But thank you very, very much for joining us this evening. And we will definitely make sure you get a copy of the technical manual. Someone must be able to. Someone behind the scenes at Anderson Entertainment who's watching this is right now making a note of that. I would hope. But thank you very much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
It's been my absolute pleasure, and hi to everybody out there, and thanks for supporting all the stuff that's coming out from Anderson. The kind of publication schedule that's coming up is fantastic.
Yeah, many exciting things to come. Thank you, Lee. Good to see you.
Always a pleasure.
Oh, yes, lovely Lee there. Thank you, everyone who's been posting in the comments. It's been great to see all the love there. And yeah, as I say, we could talk about it all day. Well, we naturally, of course, have started running out of time, but I had a game organized. We could play one round of the game, and I think we'll get away with it. So let's just take a quick look at this intro.
Anything can happen in the next half hour. Anything can happen. Anything can happen.
That's right. It is the return of Anything Can Happen. This is a simple game where I will play a clip from, funnily enough, Fireball XL5, and we are going to discuss what happens next. So, are we ready, chaps?
Born ready.
What
right.
was that? I can't hear anything anymore because of the volume of the clip that came on. I have lost the use of both of my ears.
As it should be. Quite right, too.
Thank you. I'd love some.
All right. Well, here's another clip coming up now.
Well, we've got a problem. There's no oxygen or gravity down there. And yet there's probably someone inside that planet. Who or what, we just don't know.
Well, what next, Steve?
What next, indeed. So that was from the episode Robert to the Rescue. What happens next, guys? What do you reckon?
I'm going to let Chris take a crack at this because I'm still thinking.
I think something drags Fireball Jr. inside the planet.
Oh, really? You think so?
Possibly.
Well, I know we said we only had a quick moment, but I mean, you pretty much nailed it. AC, did you have any other guesses before we end this game on a complete anticlimax?
I think that that Robert will malfunction, and instead of maintaining free float, he will fly away and join the cast of Gilligan's Island. That's my guess.
I think at some point someone will sing the end title song.
I mean, at some point that will come along. We've had some great suggestions in the chat, of course. Steve getting his own coffee, quite right too. Throwing Zuni out of the airlock, quite right too. Steve gets a pint of lager and a packet of crisps out. I mean, that would be a very casual approach to the situation, that's for sure. But yes, some fantastic suggestions there from the chat. But I tell you what, let's take a look at the full clip to see what really happens.
Well, we've got a problem. There's no oxygen or gravity down there. And yet there's probably someone inside that planet. Who or what, we just don't know.
Well, what next, Steve?
Maintain a free flow.
Steve, there's something wrong with Robert.
Hey, Fireball's going off course. We're being pulled toward that planet.
Steve, we're picking up speed.
Stand by to fire retros. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire.
It didn't work, Steve.
We're going to crash.
This is it.
I mean, Venus was literally biting her nails there. A little detail I'd never spotted before.
Well, I can't believe I guessed wrong.
Yeah, I know. God, yeah. It's almost like this game's made too easy.
It's almost like we've all watched Fireball XL5 quite extensively for some reason.
Yeah, maybe for some reason, maybe related to the technical manual, which I am going to plug one more time. So, the Fireball XL5 World Space Patrol Technical Operations Manual, written by Chris Thompson and Andrew Clements, and illustrated by Chris Thompson with who was it who worked on the additional uniform illustrations?
Christina Logan,
and of course the team at Amazing 15 who did the the layout and design for the pages and everything. There's all sorts of people working behind the scenes on this, so I really want to shout out all of those people because it is a fantastic piece of work. So this is the continuation of the technical operations manual range. Previously we've had Space 1999, UFO, Joe 90. Fireball is going to be the next in the range. There's going to be a special edition version limited to 250 copies, and you're going to want to make sure that you get in there and pre-order that as soon as it becomes available, which will be in February. And if you want to get the best possible chance of being able to get hold of the special edition, you need to go to shop.gerryanderson.com/pages/Fireball XL5 waiting list, which is where you can sign up for email notifications so that you know exactly when pre-orders are going to launch, so that you can have a chance of securing your copy, because in the past these technical manual special editions have sold out quickly, because there's a lot of very lovely stuff included in there, including extra art prints, the XL5 patch, the ID, and Cloud of a Billion Lights audio story as well. So that is the technical manual. As I say, pre-orders coming in February, and of course I'm sure we will be talking about this more as we lead up to it, but we had some lovely previews of the interior pages today. And of course, I have to say a big thank you to Chris and AC for joining me today to talk us through the book. Very exciting. What are you chaps kind of looking forward to the most about people finally being able to see and read in this book? What are you excited to share?
The illustration at the start of the WSP Fleet page. I'm excited to people to find that one.
Alrighty. What about you, AC?
I'm looking forward to seeing people's reactions to some of the fleshed out renders of vehicles that only appeared in the comics but are still part of the same continuity, because I think Chris has done an excellent job on those.
Excellent. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You mentioned that there's going to be a list of every single XL spacecraft in the entire fleet.
Yes, so we get a rundown of all 30/31, if you count the prototype, XL cruisers, with a complete listing of all of their crews, and we'll get notations of which ones are still active and what's happening to each of them. But I'll not go into the details of that. Although Fireball XL5's crew you might already be acquainted with.
You might already know those guys. Yeah, we've seen a few of their adventures already. Well, thank you very much for talking us through. Thank you everyone in the chat for your very entertaining comments that we've been seeing go by throughout the evening. It's been a real pleasure to share your Friday evening with you. And well, there's only really one way that we could possibly finish a show like this, and it is with a song. So thank you, everyone, and we'll see you again soon. Goodbye.
Good night.
Well, then what are we waiting for? A 1, a 2, a 3.
I wish I was a spaceman, the fastest guy alive. I'd fly you around the universe in Fireball XL5. Way out in space together, conquerors of the sky. My heart would be a fireball, a fireball. Every time I gazed into your starry eyes, we'd take the path to Jupiter, and maybe very soon we'd cruise along the Milky Way and land upon the moon. To a wonderland of stardust, we'll zoom our way to Mars. My heart would be a fireball, a fireball, 'cause you would be my Venus of the stars.
It's gone again.
Okay, Venus.